You notice him before the hobby does. Not because the numbers are screaming, not because every big page is posting him, not because dealers are hiding his cards. You notice him because something about Roman Anthony feels unfinished. The swing looks loose, the projection feels dangerous. The name still moves through the hobby without weight. That is the part you trust most, the silence. You have seen what happens when the market is already loud. By then, all the easy conviction is gone. Everybody suddenly becomes certain. Everybody speaks with hindsight. Everybody acts like they were early. You are not interested in being early after permission. You want to be early when it feels stupid. So one normal week, with no crowd around the showcase, you start picking them up. One Roman Anthony card, then another, then another. Chrome, auto, clean surfaces, strong eye appeal. Cards that do not need a speech. By the time you stop, you are sitting on a quiet stack that nobody would call crazy yet, but nobody would call safe either. That is exactly where you like to be. Not in certainty, not in chaos. In the soft space right before a room changes its mind. At first, nothing happens. Nothing happens long enough that a lesser collector would get nervous and start selling to feel smart again. You are not buying these cards for applause. You are buying time. You start talking. Not like a salesman, not like a scammer, more like someone who has already decided privately and now wants to see who else can hear it. You mention Roman Anthony in hobby chats when everyone is talking about safer names. You bring him up in card show conversations, casually, like the answer should be obvious if people are paying attention. You post a slab photo, then another. Nothing desperate, just a slow pattern, a repeated signal. A name placed in enough rooms, captions, comments, and late-night hobby arguments that stays in people's heads after the screen goes dark. Some people dismiss it. Some laugh. Some say the card is good, but not yet. Some say the grade is wrong. Some say the market is too crowded. Some say you are forcing it. You let them talk. You never need everybody. You only need a few people with taste, a few people with nerve, a few people who know the difference between hype and pressure underground. Then the smallest shift arrives. One sale lands a little higher than expected. Not huge, not enough to wake the whole room, but enough. A collector you respect asks what you are seeing. A page mentions him. A breaker says his name with more energy. A show table that used to leave his cards sitting too long starts moving them faster. Now the hobby is doing what it always does when uncertainty turns into belief. It starts pretending the move was always visible. That is when the wave begins. Not as an explosion, as repetition. More posts, more comps, more conversations. More people zooming into scans like they can discover in 2 seconds what patience took you weeks to feel. Roman Anthony stops sounding like a quiet tip and starts sounding like weather. Now the same people who called it early as doubt start using early in a proud way. Now pages post the card harder. Now collectors who swore they were waiting for a better entry chase worse entries with excuses. Now the room changes. Dealers talk differently. Buyers move faster. Comments get louder. Prices stop feeling theoretical. The stack in your box no longer feels like a small private decision. It feels like a current. And the strangest part is that you are not shocked. You are watching the hobby arrive at a place you visited first. That is the real reward. Not the money. Not even the comps. The reward is seeing the market catch up to a feeling you had when the cards still looked almost invisible.
Roman Anthony is everywhere. In reels, in stories, in caption debates, in table talk, in whispered price checks, in confident takes from people who did not want the risk when risk was the whole point. The wave is real now, and like every real wave, it attracts people who cannot read water. They rush in too late. They buy because they are afraid of being left behind. They convince themselves they always believed. They speak louder than the people who actually held the silence. That is when you understand the final part of the game. Seeing the player early is only half of it. Knowing when everybody else has finally arrived is the other half. So you begin moving, carefully. Not a panic sale, not a dump, a measured exit, one card at a time. Strong offers, clean timing, no speeches, no victory laps. No need to tell the room who started saying his name before the hobby was ready to listen. You know. Every sale feels less like surrender and more like completion. The stack gets smaller, the market gets louder, and somewhere inside that noise, your original belief stays pure because you met it before the crowd touched it. In the end, people will say Roman Anthony became obvious. That is what they always say when the hard part is over. But you remember what the card looked like when it was still quiet. You remember the blank stares, the weak jokes, the careful doubt. You remember how light the slab felt in your hand before it carried any status. That is the truth nobody can take from you. You did not chase the wave. You felt the pressure before the water moved. You entered before the shouting. You held through the silence.
And when the whole hobby finally rushed in and started drowning in the noise, you were already walking back to shore, lighter, richer, and still calm enough to spot the next name before anybody else learns how to say it.